episode 11 of the Silver Screen Scarehouse with Lisa and Linnie. I'm your host, Lisa, and with me, of course, is my co-host, Linnie.
Hello!
When you come to the Scarehouse, we'll be reviewing 3 movies. We may not always agree, but as lifelong film fanatics, you'll get honest opinions from 2 different sides of the aisle, followed by an old-fashioned knives up, knives down final rating. And if you've listened, you know that Linnie and I have been a little MIA for a while because sometimes life is a real bitch. She's just a real pickle bitch. And we wanted to say a special thank you to Lloyd Dobler and Joy on Twitter. We got Joy at DeadGirl31 and Lloyd Dobler. You know how much I love you, but we want to thank both of you for always consistently listening and actually asking when another episode was coming out. So, we love you.
Woo!
Woo woo! Okay, so this week, Linnie and I are going to be chatting about Creep, Crazy Bitches, and The Barber. So, let's start with Creep. When a videographer answers a Craigslist ad for a one-day job in a remote mountain town, he finds his client is not at all what he initially seemed. Written by Patrick Brice and Mark Duplass, starring Patrick Brice and Mark Duplass, it is also directed by Patrick Brice. It has been pushed heavily by Netflix, and so I watched it out of obligation, and I was blown away by how much I loved it. Linnie, you go.
Me, okay. Actually, I had heard about it ages ago and then promptly forgot about it, despite the fact it featured Mark Duplass, who is on my Freebie 5 list. Second only to Nathan Fillion, if you're listening. Nathan Fillion. Yeah. Anyway, Katie, our sci-fi honey, actually messaged me and told me I absolutely had to watch it because she wanted to know what I thought. So I turned it on right then because I wasn't doing anything. And found footage automatically puts me on edge, no matter who's involved in it. But in this case, it was actually handled really well. I think making the person behind the camera an actual videographer, cameraman, person in the industry helped prevent the majority of that whole shaky cam bullshit. So that was a great way to handle the found footage aspect without making it obnoxious. I loved that the whole thing was just focused on the 2 of them. It made it really intimate. I appreciated that. Mark is a treasure, no matter what he does. I think we can all agree that tubby time might be the best thing ever. Forever, whenever I take a bath now, it's going to be called tubby time. That's just how it is. That's not to say I did not have issues with the film. I did. I think that the way that it skirts around issues of mental health, I had real issues with that. I think it kind of implies things that it doesn't commit to, and then it abandons them with a final twist at the end. So I was kind of confused by the decisions that were made script-wise with that. I think that you're always skirting a line when you take on anything having to do with mental illness or issues of schizophrenia, things like that. But then it didn't commit to those issues, and instead it made them a plot point that wasn't entirely truthful. That was one of my main complaints. The jump scare at the end, which is a Blumhouse trope. I mean, you can't really, even if it's the Blumhouse offshoot, you can't have a Blumhouse film without a jump scare ending. I thought that completely ruined what could have been a really effective ending. Even though, and I've discussed this with other people, the jump scare had been established earlier because he is established as a prankster that likes jumping out of things and scaring people. Jump scare. But I think it would have been a really brave moment to have ended the movie quieter. And I don't want to ruin it because I do really want people to watch the movie, but I know, Lisa, you know what I'm talking about with the particular scene on camera, the long shot away before the jump scare. I think that would have been a really amazing, brave decision to have ended the film there. And I felt that the final 2 shots were really kind of unnecessary. All of that being said, I do think it's a really excellent movie and it should be seen, but it's not without its problems. Your turn.
I was really interested to know what your issues were with it.
Mm-hmm.
And that's totally fair. I as somebody who's, suffered from certain things in the past, I agree that mental illness is not something that should be kept in the closet or not spoken of. If we all just talked about the fact that we're all, wackadoo, then there might be a little more happiness in the world. But, this is a found footage movie, and I usually hate found footage. And like you said, because it was a guy who it's his profession, at no point is it ever really annoying with the way the camera moves. And there's not any shots or angles where you think, what, this doesn't make any sense. Like, who does this? Why is the camera on? So you're able to just kind of settle in and watch the movie. And I apparently was the last person on earth to fall in love with Mark Duplass. I mean, I've always enjoyed his weird gynecologist on the Mindy Show. But he plays a strangely creepy yet engaging person so perfectly that, like, you kind of want to hang out with him and do the Peach Fuzz dance and Tubby time. But at the same time, like, something's wrong, he's gonna shank you at any minute. So I enjoyed that he seems so harmless, but then something's off, and then when it escalates and you find out what is off, it's completely believable. You've bought into it. It's not hard to swallow this pill of him being whatever he is. And the humor in it, the dark humor, really worked for me. When he's really upset that his friend threw away the locket that he made for him, it's really funny,
There are, I mean, right away, even, it's so hard to explain without ruining some of these fabulous moments, but even when you're watching the Tubby Time moment, which happens really early in the film, you feel like you shouldn't be laughing at it. Like, there's just enough undercurrent of, well, he's really invested in this. He's telling this really horrible story. Is this true? That you can't quite get into it enough to let yourself laugh. But then Peach Fuzz happens, and you're like, wait, I should have been laughing at Tubby Time. Like, that was a wasted opportunity. Like, it made me want to watch it again and go back just so I could laugh at how awkward that moment was. It's so hard to explain.
Yeah, no, the first time I viewed the movie Tubby Time, I'm not exaggerating, started making me so uncomfortable. I actually started looking at the wall until I knew it was over. And then Peach Fuzz happened. And so I did actually watch the movie a second time that same day, and I was able to enjoy Tubby Time the second time around.
I think that's
Peach
key.
Fuzz is the same way. Yeah, there's a second encounter with Peach Fuzz where you're just like, oh, I'm going to go to hell for getting the giggles. So what is happening in front of this door? I mean, I almost lost my mind over Peach Fuzz in front of the door.
I mean, it kind of dares you to laugh because you're put in this situation right off where you're as confused at, what's his name? The videographer?
Pat, I don't know what his name is in the movie.
I don't remember either. Well, you're put in the same position as him, whereas you don't know what's going on either. You're as confused as he is. You got into this situation thinking it was going to be one thing, and every new horrible realization makes you realize that you have been lied to. So the process of watching the movie is kind of like the process of what he is going through filming it. So it really is an interesting synchronicity as a film watcher, being that invested and kind of just completely enthralled in a film. In those ways, the script is really solid and really well written because you are thoroughly confused for a really long time. It's definitely a movie that benefits from a second viewing.
Oh, it's so much better. I mean, the first time is really effective on a visceral level, and you're right. At first, you're like, Tubby Time's really uncomfortable, and then there's Pete buzzing like, this is weird. And then he shares a story about him and his wife, and you think, okay, we gotta get out of this house.
Right.
And then you get the video, and you think, oh my gosh. And they both play their parts so well that even though you're yelling at, we'll just call him Patrick, when he's saying, oh, look at this guy. He doesn't have any friends. I need to go see him this one last time. How can you not go see this face? And you're just thinking, I kind of understand where you're coming from, even though clearly this isn't going to end well for you. So they both just inhabit these roles, and you're in, and you experience it, as you said, almost the same way as he does, and you're not sure what to do. And then at the end, it's still somehow shocking, even though you know it's going to happen.
Right. So that's why I really wanted the film to end on that. I feel like the film actually has 3 separate endings.
It does.
Any one of which would have satisfied as an ending. But it's that first one where I thought, if the movie ends right here, mind blown. Like, this will have been one of the most brilliant movies I would have seen all year. And unfortunately, by taking it to that, I mean, it's literally 2 seconds later, but that next 2 seconds was enough to kind of take it back for me and be like, oh, well, now you're explaining everything. I don't like things explained to me. And there was a jump scare, and I didn't need that. And it scared the crap out of me because I was not remotely prepared for it. But I didn't need it either. You know, it's not something that needed to be there. And then the third ending was chilling, but it also felt unnecessary. So it's kind of that explanation that takes it just a step too far, where I would have been perfectly content had it just stopped at the first ending.
I think that's a really good point, because when in horror, there's those of us who don't want the explanation because that is scarier, but then there's other people who find knowing the reasoning behind it as equally terrifying. So what I would say is, if you are kind of just terrified that people are random wackos, just when you see that long shot, turn it off. You're done. Good. If you need a little explanation, keep going, because I didn't hate the extra explanation because it kind of felt in the same vein as the character. It was a little jokey, it was a little playful, and it did set up for a potential sequel, but not in a way where you want to kill everybody. So I was okay with that.
Yeah, I could definitely see it becoming another film. But then again, you know, we already know the twist. So it's kind of, it would take a really, not that he's not capable, but it would take a really brilliant script to kind of make it work a second time while we have the knowledge that we have coming out of the first film.
I don't know. I could probably watch him subject random people to Tubby Time and Peach Fuzz endlessly.
I feel like he could just do that on his YouTube channel, though. I would watch that.
I'm in the Mark Duplass Club now. I get it.
Oh, yeah. And it's not horror related, but Your Sister's Sister is currently streaming on Netflix, and if you have not watched that, it's one of my favorite movies of all time. Watch it immediately.
There you go.
And also, Safety Not Guaranteed, sci-fi movie, amazing, worth watching. Mark Duplass. Telling you, these guys.
I'll go ahead, I'll be the cheese and say I enjoyed the film that him and his wife did, Black Rock. So.
Oh yeah, I'm one of the few that hated it, and I should have loved it. It's a revenge movie. But yeah, the Duplass brothers are unbeatable in indie film right now. Together, separate, doesn't really matter. They are amazing.
Well, and this was a bare bones thing, and actually Patrick, if I can remember correctly, they knew each other just casually, and then one night in Mark's living room, they started talking about this, and here we are with Creep. And I think obviously we give it 2 knives up.
Oh yeah, definitely a knife up. Even problems notwithstanding, it's the best found footage movie I've seen this year. That's goes without saying, but it's definitely worth seeing.
Absolutely. And it's on Netflix, so no excuses, kid.
Exactly.
Free. All right.
So, next, A movie you should not watch, even if there's a gun to your head. Take the damn bullet. Crazy Bitches, a movie from 2014. A weekend getaway for young women turns into a nightmare when they are killed one by one for their vanity. Now, Lisa, I know that I deserved this because I made you watch The Lookalike not that long ago, but I feel we're even now. We're even. So you go ahead with Crazy Bitches first, please.
Okay, so my history with Crazy Bitches, I heard about it when it opened Outfest, I think 1 or 2 years ago, because I like to listen to the Frank Show on OutQ on Sirius. I did not get paid to just say that. But it sounded really awesome. It was this female-driven movie about, in their tagline, it's 7 women and 1 fab gay guy go to a remote ranch for some R&R, but things go horribly wrong. Okay. So I thought, awesome, right? An LGBTQ horror film written and directed by a woman. Duh. So I finally get to see it, and it's kind of the most awful thing that might have happened to me that year. But I think the problem is I went and did research, and Jane Clark, who wrote it, she didn't actually set out to make a horror film. She was going to write a movie about how friends, especially women, can be full of complexities and all the things that you know affects our relationships with one another. And so somehow it turned into a satire, but in no way can we put it in the same category as Slumber Party Massacre or American Psycho. So I don't know where she lost what she was doing. Because if it had been a film just about how we are, as women, told to make choices based on our outward appearance, that could have been maybe really interesting. But instead, it's like a paint-by-numbers slasher that has some huge plot holes where you think there's one killer, but then one time there's like clearly 2 killers, but then at the end of the movie there's only 1 killer. And then when they pit the gay guy against the strong lesbian girl in an actual physical fight, that felt like almost like a white dude just did that to be mean to the gay community. Was that just really awful what I just said? I felt uncomfortable watching that, like I was watching 2 stereotypes fight, and I didn't like it. And then they killed the one person I was excited to see, Candace. They kill her immediately. Sorry, spoiler alert, because you don't need to see this movie anyway.
No, that was a huge issue for me. Was this again? It's like it's so hard to speak this out loud without worrying what it sounds like. But the casting of transgender actors in roles where they are meant, where you're not meant to be aware, you're just supposed to pretend that they're not transgender, which is fine. But then you're making them awful. It's like maybe it's my own prejudices that I expect a transgender woman, a male to female transgender woman, to be better, to not be as awful as men think women are. And I don't know if maybe it's true equality that these transgender actresses are just as shitty and terrible as every other woman in the movie. I don't know. But it was really depressing to me to see Candace Cain being so awful in the beginning. Like, she is just a deplorable character in the short amount of time she's on screen. It's been long enough now that I can't even tell you the other transgender actress that I remember was in it. But it was just, the stereotypes are horrifying. And it's like somebody sat down to write a satirical horror film that knows nothing about satire and nothing about horror. So you end up with a film that is just across the board depressing. Like, I watched this right after I had surgery, and it made me wish I had died on the table. Like, I felt like my life would have been better if it had ended before I saw this movie. This is how bad it was. It's like every horrible stereotype that men have of women when they get together, that we are all crazy, that we all tear each other down, that we have cat fights, that we backbite, that we are miserable to each other, that we tear each other down and make fun of each other's looks and jobs and lives and relationships. Besides being a horrible stereotype that is not true if you have good friends, it's just the fact that a woman wrote it is mind-boggling because it's not satirical. It's just perpetuating the stereotypes. It's not actually saying anything about them. It's just, I can't even quantify the ways in which this movie is offensive to straight women, to transgender women, to gay men, to lesbians. And seriously, all you need is a transgender African-American dyslexic lesbian, and you would have covered all the bases. Like, I can't even fathom what this woman was thinking when she wrote this. Just, rage.
Well, I have a hard time. For me, I feel like if I didn't know anything about it going into it, it feels like somebody who maybe doesn't care for the gay community wrote it. If I didn't know better, I would choose somebody who doesn't like these, kinds of people. That sounded awful, but I don't know how else to say it.
No, that's exactly true.
This is what happens, and all gay men act like this, obviously. And I mean, not even the token straight guy is safe because he sleeps with everybody, and I mean everybody.
And what was up with that? Like, in what world do a group of friends, including a gay guy and a lesbian, all have sex with one woman's husband? It's just perpetuating that stereotype that a lesbian's only a lesbian until she meets the right dick, and that gay men will have sex with anybody regardless of the destruction it causes to their friendships. All incorrect stereotypes perpetuated by this film. You're absolutely right. I can't believe that an LGBT film festival actually screened this movie. Like, how could they watch it and not be horrified by what they saw? Like, I can't.
The straight girl that wants to always sleep with the lesbian.
That too. That she's that flexible. That this lesbian's hitting on me, so why the hell not? I'm curious. Like, it's just, I can't fathom how. First of all, some of these actors were even agreeing to be in it. They must be friends with her because I don't care how much I needed money. I would never have agreed to be in this film at all. And especially the fact that she got names to be in it. Like, Candace isn't the only one in it. Now I'm blocking because, again, it's been long enough since I watched it. But
with Guinevere Turner.
Yeah, that.
Mary Wells. It doesn't matter.
Yeah,
I can't help but wonder. Like, maybe we don't get it. Like, do we not get it? Because we're not. I don't know. I haven't been this disappointed in something in a long time. No, it's just shockingly tone deaf. I mean, that's really the only way to describe it. It's dumb. Yeah, good God, don't watch this movie. Let's be done with this.
Yes.
A knife down for me. And
knife down for me. Epic. Just pretend it didn't happen.
Let's move forward.
Moving on.
Okay, so we're going to talk about a film called The Barber. A barber comes into contact with two men who are fixated on what triggers evil. The father and son are both obsessed with the same killer who just happens to be living as a barber in a small town. And this psychological thriller basically answers the question, what did Jack Crawford do with his retirement? Clearly, the second I saw a movie titled The Barber, I was salivating and needed to watch it. And got Glenn as the main baddie was also a huge selling point. So I was pretty excited to watch it, and I was also concerned that it wouldn't meet my expectations, but I actually really loved it. I thought that it's kind of like, the same story over and over again. This guy's obsessed with a serial killer, and he's going to come find him, and this serial killer somehow has been laying dormant for, decades, just working as a barber in a small town. But Glenn just plays it so well that it's totally believable. And then when he finally like really just lets his freak flag fly, it's like, oh my gosh, he is such a serial killer, and he's freaky and he's scary, and I want to run away from him. But up until that point, he's like the sweet little guy who lives down the street and cuts your hair once a month. And it was I don't know, I loved there's some parts of it that are stupid. I mean, there's some unnecessary wackiness, but maybe because it was Scott Glenn, and clearly I have an affinity for Jack Crawford from Silence of the Lambs. Maybe that just let me push a lot of stuff through, but I really liked it.
This was a hard movie for me because like I do really like Scott Glenn as well. I have never seen him in anything where he didn't elevate a terrible movie to watchable level. Like, I mean, he was the only good thing about Sucker Punch, a movie which I will talk endlessly about how much I hate it. I mean, he will take things that are terrible and make them better. For me, the hardest part of this movie was Chris Coy, who I despise in everything. I think I don't understand why he keeps getting hired for things. You might know him from The Walking Dead, in which he played a random psychopath, or any other movie in which he played a random psychopath, because that's kind of his thing. He has the dead eyes of a serial killer, so I get why that works. He has no affect, which means he's not that good of an actor. It's always the same part. The only time I've ever liked him in a movie was Christie, which is a movie that still has not gotten released in this country. But he had a mask on the whole time, so I didn't even know it was him until it was too late. For me, he took everything good Scott Glenn did and was like 2 steps forward, 1 step back. I was frustrated with every scene he was in. The twist that we get regarding Chris Coy's character at about the halfway mark, I really contrived. I did not like that element. I don't know, it's a really super paint by numbers kind of thriller. There's really nothing new or unique about it. It's not breaking any barriers. The ending really drove me insane. I hated the ending, but because of Scott Glenn and his performance, I feel like he made it better. I enjoyed watching the rest of the movie because of him. And it's rare that I can say that about an actor. There are very few that I feel can do that with a film. But I did. I loved that kind of dichotomy of the sweet man that takes care of everybody in his little town and is just kind of hanging out. You know, I love that kind of character that's hiding the secret. But again, you know, in that aspect, it's nothing entirely new. So it's a problematic movie in that way. I feel like I'm kind of talking in circles.
That's okay.
It was a hard. Yeah, it was a hard movie for me. It's like I can't say I hated it because I didn't. I definitely recommend watching it at least once because it is a good movie in terms of his performance and the character itself I thought was really well written, but everything around him bothered me. If that makes sense.
Chris Coy is extremely irritating. I was concerned that was going to be a problem for me. Chris Coy, for Walking Dead fans, is the one who was going to kill Judith. Or he, if you are willing to admit that you've seen Hostel 3.
I was just looking.
Yeah.
He's in that as well. He was on True Blood. He played someone named Barry. Yeah, he's that guy. He's always that guy. He was in Deliver Us from Evil. I hated him in that too. I really don't like this guy.
He's not very likable, and his character is kind of stupid and annoying.
Yeah, like he's so vicious. Like what? They never really. Okay, spoiler. He's a cop, and they never really make sense of the dichotomy of the fact that he is such a raging jackass, and the fact that he's still employed as a police officer. Like he's a detective, essentially, that's taken it upon himself to track down the serial killer. Although in the beginning, you're led to believe that he is also a serial killer, trying to learn how to be a serial killer from the serial killer. Which again, believe it or not, this is a story we've seen a million times before. But it's never really made sense of the fact that he is a raging psychotic, a violent bastard, a vicious, miserable jackass, and yet he's still employed by the police.
Well, I thought he was a jackass because his dad shot himself in front of him. Isn't that why everybody has a problem?
But that doesn't really explain, like, the levels of violence that there's a scene where he is essentially about to kill a young man by taking a straight razor to his femoral artery. Yeah. And you think he's going to do it. Now, maybe it's a move. Maybe we're supposed to accept that in movie world, things like that are ignored by the police, by the general law enforcement world, because it's a means to an end of getting your man. In the real world, that would get your ass fired immediately. And generally speaking, when you see behavior like that in a movie, it's because you're watching something where the guy is on a bender. He's at the end of his career. He's throwing caution to the wind. But that's not the case here. This is a young guy that presumably is doing this to kind of enhance his career, to justify his father's existence, to make this big break. And it's just nothing about that element made sense. I feel like all this time was spent writing Scott Glenn's character, which was quite good until the very end, and no time was spent really beefing up any reality in the sense of Chris Coy's character. It's such a frustrating movie for me because I like I said, I wanted to love it. I liked it, but it's really just fraught with issues. It's not the kind of movie that I think everybody is going to love.
No, you know what I think it is? I think it's a really high-class episode of Criminal Minds.
That's a really good explanation of it.
I'm not being shady when I say that. I love to watch Criminal Minds. I call it unsub personally. So, when, you're like, yeah, he's a cop, and I don't know. There is a lot of problems with it, but I liked the way it was so quiet, even though it was such a disturbing topic. And Scott Glenn really, really carried it. Really, if he wasn't in it, I would be giving a totally different opinion on this. So maybe that's just my bias, but he made up for all of the bad stuff that was going on until, as Linnie said, the very end. And the ending is something that it's not even worth my time to talk about.
Yeah, the ending was frustrating. I just happened to look up the other things that the screenwriter has done. His history of writing is TV movies, including Return to Halloween Town, Earth versus the Spider, Honey, I Shrunk the Kids, the TV show, and the Ron Clark story.
There we go.
So maybe we're expecting too much from this guy. Maybe he did exactly what he was able to do. In that case, clap, clap, Max Ensko, clap, clap.
Yeah, I mean, I liked it. I was at no point was I upset with my time spent with it, and I was willing to let a lot of things go just because the stuff that was good enough to make up for the things that were kind of silly.
That's fair. So, knife up?
Knife up.
Yeah, I give it a knife up because I feel like it's worth watching one time, but I don't know that everyone is going to love it. I feel like, yeah, you won't hate yourself for watching it, but maybe don't expect the world from it.
No, I can absolutely see if somebody watched it and then they came back at me and they were like, this movie was so boring, why'd you do this to me? Okay.
I don't know if I don't know if it's that bad, but it's definitely, it's, don't go in expecting the world. Expect just enough and you will be pleasantly surprised.
Yeah, it's an enjoyable 90 minutes. And seriously, if you love Criminal Minds, you love this movie. So
There you go.
or,
So two knives up. There you go. On the Barber.
All right. Okay. Well, thank you, Darklings, for joining us for an episode of the Silver Screen Scarehouse. And if you'd like to chat with us about any of the movies that we reviewed today, you can find Linnie on Twitter.
I am at Linnie Loohoo, LINNIE LOOWHO.
And you can find me at LCFREMONT. And if you have a movie you'd like for us to queue up in the Scarehouse, drop us a comment below or let us know on Twitter. Stay stabby.